So last time we kind of talked about the reasons for why we have laws, right? And so mainly they're put in place to control behavior. They're imposing sanctions, and they kind of outline what is and what is not. And so we did these for a reason, is that we used to live in this era of common law. Basically, what would happen here is that we would have judges who were kind of appointed, or they're like a countryside or something like that, and they would sort of like travel around. So, when you travel, you hear cases and you make judgments based off of what is commonly accepted. So that's why it's common law. So basically, you looked at what would like how do we normally handle this problem, and what do we do with it, and then they would assess punishment. And while it's kind of useful, is that we do get to use norms in the area, and we also when we have norms in the area, right? We can it's good to maintain relationships locally, local law. You keep with the values and norms of an area. And so it's very beneficial from that aspect, right? But the problem is that you do lead to it's very inconsistent because if you think about, let's say we had common law issues here in the Inland Empire. So the laws that were in enforcement that was enforced in Rancho could be different from the ones in Colton, could be different from the ones in Big Bear. Is Big Bear considered IE or is it just mountain? I don't know. Could be, okay, we'll pick another IE community. It could be different from Calamasa and so on, right? So when you have inconsistencies, it's hard to know, what is and is not offended. What something could be a crime in one area while it's perfectly allowed in another area. You also have inconsistencies related to punishment. And so what you would really end up finding is that without laws, there was a pretty inconsistent standard for what is not a punishment. It's also inconsistent punishment as well. So, what might be just a fine or a goat, in one area might end up being, torture in another, right? So it can be really kind of a problem in that case. Especially since, there are laws, right, that are, forbidden outright in themselves. So these are mala crimes. So things like murder or sexual assault, are criminally wrong. And then there are also crimes that are mala prohibita, they're forbidden because there is a law based, because we writ the law and said so. Point being is that when we have these laws in place, right, it's important that we outline what is not acceptable and move to a clear punishment. Because hopefully this will lead to a fair and equitable application of law. So that's the ultimate, gang here, right? And if we think about, so if we don't have an idea of what the punishment is or what is or is not allowed, we create the situation where we're not really sure what is not. It leads to inconsistencies. People become disgruntled, and it doesn't make punishment seem fair or proportionate, right? So a big issue then is to make laws proportional, fair, and public, so there is no guessing game as to what can happen. So you can imagine something like if you ended up lying, we'll give you an example of how that can be kind of bad, right? I'll give you an example. So when I was a kid, as you do as a kid, right? Maybe you lied one time, right? Once or twice to your parents. Maybe you lied about taking a shower. Maybe you lied about the cookies that you ate. Maybe you lied about something, right? And it's something that really everyone does, right? I think all of us lie every day. We lie to ourselves, we lie to our partners, we lie to our family members. We lie all the time, right? So, you're taught from a young age that you shouldn't lie. It's wrong, right? But we do it anyway, and we still do it as adults. So when I was a kid, right, I remember specifically that I would, one punishment, I mean, these progressed over time, was to, write sentences, right? And so, that would be like, I will not lie. And, my parents might be, you have to do that 500 times, right? Or something like that. And, it's really tedious, it's boring, and, really when you think about, like, what it is for a crime, man, that was, like, kind of lame, right? And so it would just take forever, and you're like, this is really dumb. My parents were always like, yeah, you have to write them all out. I remember, like, I had a cousin who, like, he had the same thing, the same punishment, sentences, and, like, they let him off, like, at 100 or something like that, and I, like, never got that. It was really kind of dumb. I still think it's dumb to this day. Now, at the same time, right, fine, whatever. I also remember a time with my sister who ended up doing, like, having the same thing, lied, right? She had to write, now she's a couple years younger than me, so maybe that plays a role, but she would also do I will not lie times 300. And I was like, yes, my sister's getting punished. It's not me. You feel really great about it. And so then she went and stayed with my grandparents for a day. My grandfather ended up still makes me laugh. I laugh about it now. At the time, I thought it was like complete BS. But my grandfather typed up I will not lie on the computer and copy pasted I will not lie 300 times. They did it together, which I think is actually like a really sweet like grandfather thing to do. And my mom was like in this like mode where she couldn't decide like what to do, except they accepted it. I thought it was like complete BS as a kid. But you see here we have this discrepancy in punishment. We also have a discrepancy in how it's administered and what is not allowed, right? And as a little kid, I was very salty about all this, as you might imagine, and so it created an issue. But you can see the frustration that can happen if laws are inconsistent, if they're not clear, and if they're different from other people. So it's one of the big reasons that we have laws and recommended punishments is to make that clear. So with that said, we'll end this video here.